Good day. Welcome back to Smart Money Swings. And today we have something very interesting happening. And what I was telling you guys for a few weeks now, or for the good part, 2 months. So let's refresh our memory. All right, let's go to the weekly time frame like we always do. Let me clean up the chart for a second. Like I told you guys, hold on. All right. This right here was the 2025 high. This was the 2026 high. Notice how it swept liquidity. So we have to look at this from a weekly perspective rather than a daily perspective. So I view this as a sweep of liquidity, break of structure on a weekly basis. This is a very strong break of structure. I then was saying how we had to trade up into like this range here, this gap, and that we had to take out liquidity whilst we were trading up here. So you had three highs. You had this weekly high, and then this weekly high. And then we smartly took out this weekly high and then went down lower. With this with these other highs, I didn't view these as highs to get traded to because that's where I want to mark my fib from, high to low, and then get the retracement points. Now, as you can see here, from this gap up in here to this gap down here, this is now a weekly suspension block. I knew it was a suspension block, but I just wanted to see how much it respected the fair value gap until I saw a trade up more and close above. Then we had the weekly highs, weekly, and then we swept that. I was in this trade from up in this high range right here. And then I told you guys that we would consolidate in this range for like a few weeks to the T, just how I said it. I said that we can consolidate in this range for a few weeks. Was in from up here. We had the play push down. I also did mention that with this particular fair value gap here, that if GBPUSD, which I'll pull up in a second, when we had the break of structure right here, and I said, okay, I'm gonna mark my fib from the high to the low. So I did that, high to low. You can see we didn't even make it to the 50% range. Sorry, but that the 50% range we didn't get in any premium pricing. But what I said is that if GBPUSD was to trade up to its daily fair value gap, then EURUSD would only trade to the midpoint. If EURUSD was to trade up to its fair value gap premium, then GBPUSD would only get to the midpoint. I did annotate that. However, we were stuck in a range for a few weeks. The better part of May is like the second half of May. A weekly fair value gap was made, and then we traded up into it. We tapped into the daily fair value gap, and we whipped back down. We went to consequent encroachment, which is the midpoint. Um, and this within itself, understanding the correlation between GBPUSD and EURUSD, this was a setup. Your stop loss could have been up here or right here. But I know for absolute surety that because GBPUSD made it up to its high, then it broke down lower. Now, if we go to a 4 hour chart, this is where the confusion was because in a way I still was looking for it to trade up into here, but I just understand the basic rules and principles. Now, up in a 4 hour chart, that was a small trade I took the other day. Let me delete that for a second. We wicked, we tested higher time frame PD rate. We waited. It came down. It tested the 4 hour fair value gap, but this wasn't for me like a clear solid entry. We wicked. Now, what I was thinking around here was that this was like the fair value gap for this to go higher and push on higher. But remember, I keep telling you guys, the speed of the candles tells me if the trade is valid or not. So the speed that these 4 hour candles were going were still insignificant to how fast this dropped. So this was the speed of these three candles here, or these three consecutive candles, told me that hey, maybe we're gonna sell off a little more. Let me take some of my profits because I was in this trade, say from around this portion here. I caught a quick buy and then watched us break down lower. It's hard trading in consolidations, but once you know what you're doing, it's gonna be easy. So now we have the true break of structure right here. I quickly identified this as the break of structure after testing higher time frame PDRA or area of interest. And then, this cannot be viewed as a break of structure until we get this candle and this candle, these two candles closing below. Then we had the retracement up into the 4 hour fair value gap. I took a sell on it and then it came back right around NFP. And I knew that it was going down. However, fascinatingly enough, I closed out my trade and then missed a big move down. But it's okay. This daily fair value gap here that was used as a bullish fair value gap to keep us in this range. And we also had a 3 hour fair value gap that I don't have annotated here anymore that was kind of ping ponging off of price. So let me go and show you how price ping pongs. So this was the 3 hour fair value gap I had annotated right here. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm not gonna see. So what price did was price gave us this false sense of hope that it was going to retrace inside of the fair value gap. And then it just came down, bounced back up, wicked. This 3 hour fair value gap here. I wasn't watching that though. Came down. We just waiting at this point. It opened up a new week with a gap, made you believe that we were gonna buy, and then it was ping ponging off of this fair value gap. Came touch, went back up. Now, how I kind of knew that it was going up into the daily fair value gap because we had this break and close above the 3 hour fair value gap. We then came down. We then came down into this fair value gap here, and then we bought up into um, premium pricing. And so because of this break and close above, and notice how we weren't even touching the weekly fair value gap. So you know that liquidity was right here to be taken. So then we did that, we did that, and then we kind of started breaking structure. You could even call this a break of structure if you was just looking at the 3 hour fair value gap. But I'm not a 3 hour um, trader. Like I trade all time frames. I just annotate where if we're in a consolidation, what is price bouncing on 3 hour fair value gap and also a daily fair value gap. So we had the move lower. So now what can we expect this week for you, the Euro USD? Well, For starters, this is now an inversion fair value gap. So for the inversion fair value gap, I could expect this to be traded all the way up into here. Now, I'm going to make this quite clear. If Euro USD gets to the premium end of this fair value gap, which then I believe it would because like we mitigated right here from this side to this side. So like, and then we didn't reach in the premium pricing. I'm expecting this to kind of get to premium pricing and kind of bounce off of this old daily fair value gap for a buy. Notice how it's in green because that means it's for a buy. Now this is going to be used for sell. And what you want to do is watch kind of structure shift within the internal range up in here for a clear buy lower. My bad, a clear sell lower. All right. And then, like I was telling you guys, um, we could have a break of structure here, break of structure. We're gonna have more chances to get in this trade and sell down to the 6 month fair value gap. So this is literally a perfect play. Like if you go back and watch all of the videos, it's exactly how I said it, except that this just didn't get into premium pricing over here. But since we had that shift of structure on the 4 hour, I just knew that it was gonna head down lower. Let me go to GBPUSD. So GU is kind of an interesting topic. Let me show you. So this, after it had the break, this was the high end of the daily fair value gap. I want to make something quite clear. For me, anytime the candlestick body is closed above the range, it invalidates the trade for me. However, if you go up one time frame, you would see this is now a weekly fair value gap as well. So this is the fair value gap that I was watching, and it respected it perfectly. Um, so now we could expect. Hold on, let's go back to the daily. We could expect wherever Monday candle closes. For me, I expect GBPUSD to kind of move slower and to get to like a midpoint, and EURUSD to get to the top. I will be entering two of these trades, Euro USD and GBP USD for a sell, but one will be entered at the midpoint and one would be entered at the top. It depends on which one reaches there first. We don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know if Euro USD is going to reach to the midpoint and GBP USD is going to reach the top. Whichever ones reaches which point first, I'm going to be inside the trade. All right. So that's what I have for you guys today. Yes, yeah, it's just like really nothing like more to like kind of say on that. If you have any questions, comments, like, subscribe, comment, and I'll hit you guys back up. Thanks.